Grace and peace to you from United Protestant Church in Morgan Park, Duluth, Minnesota, where the door is open because it is beautiful out there, isn't it? I've been here since early, but it was beautiful even earlier. But you know what's coming, right? Starting tomorrow, starting this afternoon, I think it's a high of the upper 50s at most, right? So what I think is just like squirrels gathering nuts for the winter, just as we gather the sunshine and the warmth and beauty of a day like today. I know I got my last sunburn yesterday, and I was very proud of it. Probably my last sunburn. We gather today with the Spirit. We fill ourselves with that Spirit for those gray and cold and rainy days that we might have in the week ahead. We fill ourselves with grace. We welcome Christ's presence, Christ's light. So let us begin singing our call to worship, Christ be our light. In honor, let's go ahead and just do one verse of that one, and it's the handout in the back.
Today's reading is Matthew 15 through 20. If another member of the church sins against you, go and point out the fault when the two of you are alone. If the member listens to you, you have regained that one. But if you are not listened to, take one or two others along with you, so that every word may be confirmed by the evidence of the 2 or 3 witnesses. If the member refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church, and if the offender refuses to listen even to the church, let such a one be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. Truly I tell you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, truly I tell you, if two of you agree on earth about anything you ask, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among them. And now let us sing together, Come We That Love the Lord, song number 23 in your hymnals.
Good classic sound in that one. Let's hear it for Isaac Watts and those beautiful old songs. Just a great one. Let's hear it for Isaac Watts. Why not? Just worth cheering in my books. Okay, friends. How you doing? Are we here? We're okay? We've talked about, in the past few weeks, we talked about finding an answer to the question, who do you say that I am? In a few sentences or less, as we said, so that we can efficiently engage it and practice it. Quick, off the tip of the tongue, who do you say that I am? And likewise, we talked about the things that burden us from our journeys last week. The things that block our view. I used that silly analogy of a leaf on the wiper and trying to get it off, or ice on the blades, whatever you want to call it. So that second one I called the what. The first one I called the who. Who do you say that I am? What blocks you? What is a barrier on the path you're walking with Jesus? Notice this, though, that the what was what keeps us from following that path. It was kind of focused in the negative, right? It wasn't asking the question, what are we supposed to be doing? Because that second question, the what are we supposed to be doing, will change. It'll change every single day of your life. Day by day, experience by experience. It's as varied as the times of your life. It's as varied as the different interests you have in different times, different hobbies. Varied as your choice of words and actions in conversations with different people. That constantly changes the path you're walking. Friends, when you accept Jesus into your heart, God doesn't then put blinders on you and send you forward. Quite the opposite. Accepting Jesus into your heart is the time when God takes those blinders off so that you can see all around you. Because that's how Jesus walked the earth. I've said this before, I'll repeat it again. He didn't just sit in the temple and say, come here, obey. He walked amongst the people. And instead of putting blinders on and say, obey, he said, welcome, welcome, welcome. And he still does that. I believe that with my whole entire heart. He's in every one of our actions, our experiences, saying, welcome, all around, welcome. So here's my question. It's a question for myself, it's a question for everybody. Am I acknowledging that welcome? Do I hear that in my day-to-day life? Jesus' presence saying, welcome. So we got the who do you say that I am? What's in the way from following the Christian path? And today we have the how. How do we hear and receive and respond to the welcome that we hear in Jesus from all the myriad of different things that come from around us? How do we respond to having the blinders taken off and seeing and receiving and responding to all around us echoing that welcome? You see, Scripture today is about resolving disputes. It's about a great many things, as our Bible study on Sunday takes it in so many wonderful directions. But let's take resolving disputes. It's about reconciliation in separateness we may have. It's about welcome. But behind those words of resolution and reconciliation, we need to hear that welcome. There's a sentiment that Jesus is expressing behind those words of reconciliation. What are some of the closing words in that gospel passage? If two or more agree, God has got your back, to paraphrase. When two or more are gathered, I, Jesus, am there among you. So Jesus is telling us that there are more important things to focus on than messing with the little disputes. Do you hear that? It's underneath it. Do we know anything about disputes here? Sometimes, it's fair to say, people in churches, and this is every church, we have witnesses that know different churches, get fussy. People get fussy. especially in churches in a comparative time of stagnancy of spirit, stuck in the routine, in the tradition. You know what I picture? I picture kids in the backseat of a car on a road trip. We've all been there. We know exactly what I'm talking about. Kids in the backseat of a car on a road trip. He's touching me. Tell him to stop touching me. Stop. You know it, right? And by the way, it was all my siblings' fault. I was perfectly innocent. Thank you. We fuss like that. We fuss like that in churches. And again, all churches have it. Do I have a nod? All right, good. Making sure I'm not exaggerating here. Someone needs to call my bluff up here, I tell you. But all churches have it because stagnancy and repetition and straight focus forward, like those kids in the car, it just bores us. And we start to fuss. So what's the cure for it? The cure for it is having something more important to focus on that makes all those little fussy disputes feel trivial. Now, new things are arriving all the time. Let's put it this way. Every group or gathering of people has a normative behavior shared between them. When people come to your table, there are ways you expect them to behave, right? Fair? And that differs in every single home you might sit at a table with. Some sit at the table, or some set the table nicely and wait on those around them. Wait on the guests, saying, here, being kind, doing the very formal thing. Some will say, here's the food. Dish up, it's there on the stove. And if you need something, there it is in the fridge. Help yourself, right? Different. Some are on their best behavior, and some are casual, joking with their feet up, right? And I say that just for perspective on the diversity of how many different expectations we might have. This extends much larger. The ways we are accustomed to things. The things we are accustomed to, the ways we expect things to be. How does this happen in churches? Think about this for a second. And just think in your head, get some images. What are we accustomed to in churches? What are the ways we expect things to be? How does that happen in communities? Morgan Parkers from history or present. Let's take Morgan Park as an example. Hey, if that's God, tell him to take a message. I'm busy. Joking. Morgan Park. What are we accustomed to? What are the ways we expect things to be? And this extends. How about a nation? You're America, right? What are the ways we are accustomed to? What are the ways we expect things to be? And then somebody or a group of people come along that do things a little differently. They have different ideas. They have lived, because we know it's holy to listen to stories for understanding, they have lived different lives and arrived at different conclusions and practices in everyday life. How does the group respond? You see how we take this, the same thing from the table up to the church, to the community, to the nation. How do we respond? Do we say, nope, this is the way we do things? You know, I use that table metaphor. And today, here, our table is set. It's communion. Table is set in church, and Jesus is our host. Jesus' expectations of table manners are present today. So what are Jesus' expectations of our table fellowship together? What I can do is to answer that is to appreciate his ministry that I know of. In our gospel story today, friends, who are the ones? In our gospel story in Matthew, let's say, who are the ones that said, nope, this is the way we do things? And we know how that story ends, right? Who is it that came with a different idea? An alternative, a different life, a different conclusion, and a way of practice. If anyone ever hosted a table where the common ethic and expectation is welcome something new, it is Jesus. That was his whole ministry, friends. And so I ask again, how do we welcome what is new around us? How do we take off the blinders and the fuss that is engendered by boredom and repetition? How do we meet something or someone that is new and different as Christians? We take the blinders off. And instead of saying, nope, this is the way we've always done it, we open our minds and we get creative, right? Creative understanding. Let's take this time as an example. We can't gather the way that we used to in times of fellowship. Our big events have been canceled, our marathons and our Halloweens and our rummage sales and on, we're sad about it, right? How many of you would really love to smell donuts here this morning? How many of you would love to get here and decorate? Thank you, by the way, Mike and Marna, this looks great, but have a group together and have some fun cooking or decorating or the things we've done, potlucks. We all want that. But by and large, we stop gathering, and here we are safe and distanced, especially for fellowship or times of communication and friendship. Well, things are different, right? You know, friends, lean times happen often in many churches. I haven't had a church I've been in where lean times have not happened. And this time we're in has certainly triggered a lean time. Fair enough to say, right? Financially, lean times are a given. And right now, to be certain, they're here. But even the healthiest of churches, or I would say the healthiest of churches, work their budgets year by year to break even, correct? We're not in it for the profit, except that profit. Oh, that was a good one, sorry. We work to break even, and by my observation and my experience and the case studies I read in seminary and such, resting on the laurels of an endowment, churches that do that is a recipe for stagnancy and decline. So what I'm saying is we are used to, when the budget comes, we are used to adjusting and readjusting to present circumstances. And we'll do it again now. But there's another type of leanness, of scarcity, that concerns me much, much more when it comes to church. Times of lean and scarce communal spirit. Of people working independently at best. Of people being disconnected. That's my real COVID concern in church. I think of examples, I'm hyperbolizing this a bit, but you'll see what I mean here. One cleans, one mows the lawn, one decorates, one makes music, and nary the four of them shall ever meet, huh? That's concerning. Because that's not church. That's a building, that's maintenance, right? Now we start getting creative. Blinders are off on the maintenance. Get creative with it. How do we adjust? I think in exploring how we continue to be church, here and now, we will find that same creativity with which we open up that radical welcome that Jesus was to everything around us. It's time to start thinking creatively, friends. And that same spirit of open-minded creativity will guide us on how to approach all things new and different. I wrote in this month's newsletter, a little one paragraph, when we plan things in a church, our instinct is to invite and include as many people as possible. Everyone is welcome. That's the UCC spirit, and that's certainly our church's spirit. And we want to gather as many people as possible in one place. Well, that's one way. One way to make a church feel like a buzzing, active, and vibrant beehive. But there's another way, and that's to plan smaller groups, intentionally limited for safety. And we can then have the hive buzzing in the church hive buzzing with different people doing different things all the time. It's a new and different way of looking at church activity because, why? This is a new and different time we're facing. And guess what, friends? As a Christian, it always is. There is always something new and different. Did Jesus do anything that wasn't turning our expected norms up on their head? Upside down, the last shall be first, the first shall be last. You know this. So let's look at it. How can we be church the way we feel called to be church now? New and different and creative.